Good afternoon, creative learners. Welcome to this episode of
Coaching creativity.
I'm your host, Anna Darrow, and this web show is meant to teach you about imagination, creativity, and innovation, giving you lessons on how it works in all of its elements from a gal who just completed a whole semester on the subject. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing concepts and theories on imagination and creativity. The first thing we're going to discuss is an impetus for imagination, dyshomeostasis. Dyshomeostasis is the disruption of an individual's homeostasis, or balance and predictability. Dyshomeostatic events are those that sort of throw off your routine, they cause an issue, or they cause some sort of frustration or disturbance in your life. Dyshomeostatic events may be frustrating, but they often trigger imagination because our minds subconsciously look for ways that the event can be avoided in the future. So if you consider maybe falling when you're roller skating because you hit a pebble, in the future you might think, wow, I'm going to look down to make sure that I don't hit a pebble ever again because that was awful and I never want to fall like that again on my roller skates. The next theory we're going to be discussing is Schumpeter's theory of creative destruction. In his book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, Joseph Schumpeter coined the term creative destruction, which describes the process where new, cutting-edge innovations replace existing solutions that are rendered obsolete over time. So to go over some examples of this, you might consider the taxi, which has been somewhat replaced, especially in a lot of big cities, by Uber and other rideshare options. Next, you could consider CDs and even record players, which have been basically completely replaced by music sharing online digital tools such as Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, anything like that. Lastly, you can consider probably the most used example for this, which is the way that the horse and buggy were replaced by Ford's Model T vehicle. The next concept we're going to be discussing is zeitgeist. So zeitgeist is how the quantity and quality of creativity is affected by circumstances of the time. When multiple people or a community focuses on the same problem at the same time, it sparks creativity because they can feed and build off of each other's ideas, research discoveries, and failures. So, space exploration is a great example of zeitgeist. Scientists across the globe all jumped onto space exploration in the 1950s. The US and Russia were neck and neck with sending satellites to space, but Russia was ultimately the first. Then the US followed the following year and eventually sent a man to space a few years later. China followed in the next decade with their own satellite. So this is a great example of zeitgeist because in the race to space in the 1950s, so many scientists across the globe were working on ways to get both things and people into space, which meant there was a lot of research happening, a lot of idea sharing, a lot of watching for mistakes from the other countries just to learn from each other, which made the process a lot quicker and a lot more creative in a smaller period of time. The next thing we're going to be discussing is the stage theory of creativity. Graham Wallace describes the creative process as consisting of 4 stages: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. Preparation is the first step, and this is the initial phase of the creative process where you gather information, research, and essentially set the groundwork for idea generation by actively seeking inspiration and understanding the problem or challenge at hand. There are 2 steps to preparation. General prep is just generally researching the subject to learn more without a specific goal. Directed preparation is research and knowledge gathering with a specific goal in mind. The next step is incubation. This is when the creative idea takes shape and comes to life. It's a time for unconscious processing problems when they are set aside for a period of time, which may lead to insights. This stage is characterized by involuntary focus on a specific problem and unconscious mental processing, where a person considers the problem and all of the information they know about it, which may accidentally trigger ideas. The next step is illumination, which refers to the moment of sudden insight or aha moment when a creative solution to a problem becomes clear, often described as a light bulb moment where a new idea breaks through to conscious awareness. The last step is verification. This is the final phase where a generated idea is critically evaluated, tested, and refined to ensure its viability and effectiveness. The last thing we're going to be talking about is the associative theory for measuring creativity. In 1962, Sarnoff and Martha Mednick introduced this theory, which suggests that creative ideas arise spontaneously in the mind through a series of associative processes. To test this, the Mednicks came up with the Remote Associates Test, or RAT, a study used to determine someone's creative potential. The RAT gives the person 3 words that are unrelated and asks them to think of a 4th word that is related to all 3. So, as an example of this, I want you to think of the words coin, quick, and spoon. And I'm going to give you a second to think of what a 4th word that relates to all 3 might be. Did you think of one? I thought of silver because coins can be made of silver. You can think of quicksilver, and then, of course, there are silver spoons. So thank you for watching, and come back next week to discuss how you can spot the difference between worthless ideas and opportunity.